We step into a city alive with rhythm and texture. Buses groan and doors slam. Cyclists thread through crowded streets. Shoppers brush past glimmering displays. Children's laughter and shouts bounce off brick and glass. And office lights wink on like stars scattered across an urban sky, each one holding a story waiting to be told. From above, it looks full. From inside, it can feel hollow. You know the sensation, walking past a cafe full of people, and still feeling like you are not to be noticed. Imagine that experience repeating over weeks, months, years. That persistent ache is not just melancholy, it is loneliness, and in the dense, fast-moving spaces of American cities, it is common across ages and backgrounds. Research anchors what your gut already suspects. Nearly 1 in 3 adolescents and close to 1 in 4 adults report frequent feelings of loneliness in some urban settings. Among older adults in cities, over 30% can say the same. These numbers are not mere statistics. They are lived experiences that ripple through mental and physical health, sleep, immune function, stress hormones, motivation. Urban density does not guarantee intimate connection. That paradox is the thread that runs through this story. Crowded places can still leave us invisible. Scene by scene, you will meet classrooms that start with a hollow bench, parks that seem noisy but empty for someone on the fringe, cafeterias where laughter doesn't reach every table, and community rooms where belonging is built one small invitation at a time. We will explore how the work of Tamar Mendelsohn, Richard Weisbord, Sean Kelly, and Stephanie Men Jones comes alive in real stories. We'll see what really helps. Small, caring daily interactions, peer programs that build genuine connection, counseling that creates understanding and trust, and community efforts that invite all of us to belong and contribute. Above all, this is a story about the quiet, cumulative power of being seen. In a morning classroom, students trickle in like a slow tide. Desks creak, backpacks hit floors. Some groups cluster naturally. One student pauses at the doorway, hand on the handle, unsure. She is not dramatic or visibly broken. She is simply a person who has become used to not being noticed. That hesitation is crucial. It tells you how small social barriers accumulate. You have probably been there too, deciding not to join a conversation, assuming your presence won't change the dynamics, or feeling that your voice will just drift away. Cities amplify those moments. Large schools, sprawling workplaces, and transient neighborhoods make recognition harder. In crowded systems, social hierarchies form fast, subtle exclusions add up, and anonymity becomes a default. These forces don't just affect conduct in the moment. They shape long-term trajectories. Chronic loneliness in adolescence correlates with depressive symptoms, poorer school engagement, and reduced trust in peers. For adults, persistent social disconnection is linked to anxiety, lower job satisfaction, and fewer community ties. And among older adults, social isolation can predict declines in health and functional independence. But peer networks are not fixed. Sean Kelly and others describe them as invisible architectures, webs of influence and recognition that shape how people see themselves and others. You do not need a grand intervention to change those webs. Small, consistent acts, inviting someone into a group, calling attention to a contribution, or offering a seat at a table, restructure social space. Stephanie M. Jones's work shows that structured relational interventions, when repeated and predictable, can increase feelings of connection by meaningful percentages. The point is not novelty, it is reliability. When someone knows that a small ritual, a weekly circle, a shared task, a mentoring check-in will happen, trust accumulates. Unstructured spaces, cafeterias, parks, subway platforms matter precisely because they are unstructured. They're where belonging is either affirmed or denied in fragments. A glance, a nodded head, a seat offered. These moments feel insignificant in isolation, but they shape narratives. Do I belong here? Would anyone notice if I wasn't here tomorrow? Social-emotional learning programs in schools and community-based initiatives teach small skills for opening these spaces. They train people to notice, to invite, and to create low-cost moments of inclusion. Data suggests these approaches can lift connectedness scores substantially, especially when they are embedded in everyday routines. Consider adult workplaces and community centers, a co-working hub where someone is consistently greeted, or a volunteer program that pairs newcomers with a mentor, alters trajectories. Tamar Mendelsohn's research highlights that targeted relational supports, counseling, mentoring, coordinated peer groups can increase inclusion significantly. For adults balancing work, caregiving, and commuting, connection often requires structure. Regular meetings with a shared purpose reduce the friction of initial contact and offer predictable ways back into community life. Counselors and mentors become relational bridges. Their role is not to fix loneliness in one session, but to scaffold relationships that extend beyond their office. Strategic questions: who would you like to connect with? What group sounds interesting? Nudge people from passive solitude into active participation. The emphasis is on integration rather than dependency, building the small social competencies and routines that let people re-enter peer networks and community roles. Over time, incremental relationships add up into a robust sense of belonging. Structured programs produce measurable gains. Advisory circles in schools, mentorship chains in neighborhoods, intergenerational arts projects, volunteer tutoring. These are not just feel-good activities. They are deliberate designs that spread responsibility for noticing and including. Adolescents engaged in sustained peer programs often report large drops in loneliness. Adults and older adults involved in community service or creative collaboration report higher purpose and stronger social ties. The mechanism is simple. Regular participation builds identity, competence, and mutual recognition. Beyond formal programs, storytelling and shared contribution are powerful. When someone's skills or stories are invited into a collective project, a mural, a tutoring session, a neighborhood cleanup, that person is given social capital, visible evidence that their presence matters. Contribution moves a person from the periphery into the center of a small social orbit. It transforms a passive recipient of occasional kindness into an active contributor to community life. Loneliness changes the way you relate to others morally and emotionally. Richard Weisbord's work suggests chronic isolation bluntens empathy and moral reasoning. People who feel disconnected may withdraw from cooperative activities and avoid opportunities that would increase interdependence. This is not moral failing, it is a consequence of repeated invisibility. Rebuilding moral engagement starts with being recognized, and with small repeated invitations to participate in shared goals. When people feel seen, their willingness to cooperate and empathize grows. Intergenerational work is especially restorative. Seniors bring perspective and continuity. Adolescents bring energy and curiosity. Adults often carry skills and organizational capacity. When these groups work together, tutoring, mentoring, arts, service, the benefits are reciprocal. Older adults report feeling useful and less isolated. Young people gain mentorship and broader social models. Communities knit together in more resilient patterns. Reflection matters. Belonging grows in low-intensity, everyday ways, through repeated recognition, predictable routines, and opportunities to contribute. It does not require dramatic change. Instead, it asks for consistent, intentional practices, weekly advisory circles, mentorship check-ins, structured volunteer pairings, counselor-facilitated introductions. At the policy and institutional level, designing for relationship is possible. Schools can build advisory systems that guarantee each student a small, stable network. Employers can invest in mentoring and onboarding that emphasize social integration. Community centers can prioritize intergenerational programming and low-barrier volunteer opportunities. Transportation hubs and public spaces can be designed with sightlines and seating that promote simple interactions. These are pragmatic investments with human-scale payoffs. What about measurement and evidence? The studies you've heard about are not anecdotal. They show meaningful effects: increased social connection scores, reduced loneliness metrics, improved mental health indicators, and better engagement outcomes. What separates successful interventions from temporary fixes is durability. Programs that provide routine, shared purpose, and pathways back into a social network. They are not one-off workshops. They are predictable patterns that people can count on. Now imagine a city where those small practices are layered across everyday life. In that city, a student who hesitates at the classroom door meets a peer mentor at the threshold. An older adult who walks the same park loop is invited into a weekly art project. A newcomer to a neighborhood finds a volunteer role that aligns with their skills. Those invitations, repeated over time, shift how people see themselves. They turn invisible into visible, and ignored into needed. This is not sentimental optimism, it's practical. Relational health can be taught, organized, and defended. You can practice noticing. You can design predictable opportunities for inclusion. You can support programs that intentionally pair people across difference and across age. The benefits extend beyond subjective well-being. Communities that support belonging show higher civic engagement, lower rates of certain health conditions, and stronger resilience in times of stress. If you are looking for next steps, whether you are an educator, a community leader, a manager, or a neighbor, think in terms of routines and invitations. Start with small, repeatable social rituals. Build predictable meeting structures with shared goals. Prioritize low-barrier roles that allow people to contribute. Train staff and volunteers to notice discrete signs of loneliness and to extend invitations without pressure. Measure not just participation, but relational depth. Who has a regular check-in, who contributes, and who can call someone in a moment of need. Loneliness in urban America is a problem with practical remedies rooted in human-scale design. The arc from invisibility to belonging happens in small steps. A greeting, a seat offered, a consistent circle, a shared project. These practices are quiet, ordinary, and profoundly transformative when sustained. As you move through your city, in classrooms, parks, workplaces, or trains, remember that a brief act of attention can alter someone's story in measurable ways. For those who want to learn more, these scholars and their work offer an evidence-based path forward. Explore their studies, check out community programs that emphasize relational continuity, and consider supporting initiatives that make predictable inclusion a core design principle. Subscribing to platforms that share research-based stories and joining playlists that highlight actionable community practices can help you continue this work. Your attention matters. Your invitations matter. Thank you for slowing down and learning with us today.